lies in the heart of battle.
If you're a fighting game fan, that quote is one that you've likely heard numerous times. And at first, right, it sounds like just some shonen protagonist BS, right? Answer lies in the heart of battle. Like, what the? Get that out of here, bro. Like, we ain't gonna Goku or Monkey D. Luffy in this piece. We ain't trying to hear all that, right? But I would argue that there is definitely wisdom and a significant human truth hidden in the statement. Well, not hidden because it's right there made apparent. Answer lies in the heart of battle, right? But what does this exactly mean, right? When taken out of the context of like Street Fighter and just like beating ass in order to be the world's strongest, like fighting hobo. What does it mean when we say the answer lies in the heart of battle, right? And to this question, I would like to point to the realities of the world that we live in, right? So socially, there's a lot of games and like deceptions and manipulation that gets played in order to adequately live in an environment with other people. You know, you can't always say what you want to say out of fear of it coming across wrong, or it hurting other people's feelings, or them taking what you said wrong or out of context. And especially if we're talking about in today's day and age with internet culture being what it is, a person's statements can be completely misconstrued or even falsified to the point that the person's original point is no longer even there, you know? So we live in many ways a world full of deception, you know, a world that's predicated upon deception. There's the concept of the persona, right, which is like the version of ourselves that we put on display to the outside world in order for us to get through our day-to-day events, you know, because basically it's stating that in order for us to interact with others, or in order for us to exist socially, there has to be some level of acting or some level of facade that we're putting on in order to navigate that playing field, right? And in some ways it can be fun, you know, there can be sort of I don't say gimmickiness, that's not the word I'm looking for because it's not even a word. There can be a novelty to it, that's what I was looking for. Not gimmickness, it's not a word. Novelty. There can be novelty in it, right? And like playing a role and having fun with the mask that you decide to show others, right? But in many ways, and I think a lot of people can attest to this, it can become exhausting after a while. You know, it can be really difficult to go day by day putting on these airs and trying to be acceptable to people and make sure you're doing things right in order to avoid like hurting people's feelings, or trying to express yourself, but like the words that you are trying to put together or the things that you're trying to verbalize to people just aren't coming out the right way, or they're not being taken the right way. You know, it can be an absolutely just debilitating experience as a human being having to go through that. And this is where fighting comes in. This is where combat comes in. And this is the truth that I believe Ryu found in battle, right? So there was a video that I watched recently that inspired me to make this talk, and it was Super Eye Patch Wolf's, most recent video on how he loves combat and loves fighting, and his affinity for the manga Teppu, and how getting into this series sort of reaffirmed and also helped build his passion for martial arts. And it was something he was already engaged with, but you guys should really watch it, man. It's a really cool video, and he goes into a bit of the philosophy behind what makes fighting such a significant force, you know, because it's not just about causing harm to somebody else. And within the video, right, he makes a distinction between violence versus fighting in martial arts, and he shows that, well, to his point, right, he defines violence as the deliberate seeking out to do harm to another individual, while martial arts and fighting are something that is used in a sort of competitive and like a self-discovery sense, like it's two people pitting themselves against one another in order to showcase not only their prowess as a fighter or a martial artist, but also to grow. You know, by going against these strong opponents, you become better, you become stronger, and you have more of an ability to showcase your skills as well as protect yourself, you know. And one thing that he talks about that I think is extremely true, right, is how you learn so much more about a person when you get into a fight or a conflict with them. And that statement, right, really made me think back on just like my own personal experiences. You know, I think back on, I had a best friend, right, that we were in middle school. I think we were in like 7th or 8th grade, and then like we were playing games, and then like all of a sudden like we decided to go outside, and like it was snowing and stuff out, right, and we just like started like throwing each other. You know, it was really weird. Like, we weren't mad at each other. We were just hanging out. And then I don't remember if he came over and like pushed me, or if like we were just walking. But all of a sudden, right, we're like out in his front yard, and we're just like slamming each other down and just like putting each other in headlocks. And like we were really going in on each other, man. Like, this wasn't some like soft little like patty cake stuff we were playing. By the end of it, man, we had like grass and mud like all over our shirts and stuff, man. We were all wet, exhausted, and it was just like, it was a strange thing. But like after that happened, I felt closer to my best friend than I ever had before. And it's such a really weird thing to be able to say, right, is that like after I got into pretty much a fight with my friend, I felt like we connected on a level past whatever our friendship had been up to that point. And we were pretty damn close up to that point, man. Like, he was a person that I did consider my best friend even before all that, but afterwards it just felt like something was different, but like not in a bad way, you know. And that statement made by not only your boy Ryu, but Eye Patch Wolf as well. And it's just a sentiment that I've heard in a lot of pieces of media that I watch, right? Like stuff like Baki the Grappler and other things that have a focus on like combat and the martial arts. It talks about how personal of a bond and how personal of a feeling it is to be in combat with somebody. And another anecdotal piece of evidence I have for this is my own experiences in wrestling in a Brazilian jiu-jitsu gym that I did briefly, man. It was something that I wish I would have stuck with. The gym ended up moving. I ended up having a kid, and just all kinds of stuff happened that caused my schedule not to really be able to work with that. But I think it's something that I do want to go back to at some point in time, because I think it's amazing, you know. But I remember like the first time that I got on the mat with the coach over there, and he said something to me that's just stuck with me to this day. And he was talking about like, well, now that you're here, we're on the mat together, I want you to remember that we're brothers. No matter what happens from this point out, no matter how much we see each other, we don't see each other, the fact that you came in here and that you're a member of this gym and that we're doing this right now means we're connected. And it was just like, it was anime, bro. Like, it was like anime in real life. But he really, like, just that statement alone, right? Like, he fostered that camaraderie and like that sense of connection that two people have when they're like physically going up against one another, you know. And an old saying that I've heard when it comes to wrestling is that there are no lies on the mat. And that's beautiful, man, because I think it completely encompasses the crux of this video. And what I'm trying to say is that, like, when you're in a combat situation with somebody else, when you're fighting someone else, there's no falsehoods, you know. Like, there's no manipulations, there's no like social games being played, there's no mask to hide behind. Like, you see everything about that person. You see their desperation if they're in a situation where it's like life or death, or if they really have a lot riding behind this match. You see the desperation in their face. You see how risk averse or risk taking that person is by the things that they do, you know. Like, are they a sort of person that's diving right in towards you and does not give a care about life and limb or what happens to their body as long as they hit you? You know, you learn a lot about how somebody carries themselves in that situation. You can find out how easily somebody gives up when you're in a combat situation, like because there are situations where you're like doing wrestling or submissions with somebody. How quick are they to tap out? How long does it take them? You know, like do they refuse? And just it can be hard to put into words, and I think that's the very essence of this video, right? Is that the things that I'm saying can only do this topic so much justice because I think it's something you have to experience. I think that you have to give combat sports, martial arts, and things of those nature a try to really kind of get what I'm trying to come across, man. But like, you learn more about the person that you're fighting with on a level that nobody else in their life has seen them at. You know, if they've never been in a serious physical confrontation with another family member, and hopefully they haven't, because that's not something that we normally do with one another, unless it's like a brother or like a sister sometimes too, you know, where you can get into pretty heated fights with them. But there's sides of a person that you only see when they're put into a physical confrontation with somebody else, like their strength, their weaknesses, what scares them, what they're willing to put up with, like their pain tolerance, their desperation, how they react when they're in a situation where like there's something on the line. There's a lot of things that you'll never really know about a person unless you're in that situation with them, and fighting is one of those things that can bring those qualities out, you know. So for me, when I hear the quote, "The answer lies in the heart of battle," you know, I think of like Ryu and just other characters of that ilk. It to me, it speaks to the reality of the match or the ring, wherever you're having that fight, it being a sacred place, a place of honesty, you know, a place where what you are shines through, how much practice you put into your martial art, how much time, blood, sweat, and tears you dedicated to these techniques that you're fostering. Going back to that saying, right, we said there's no lies on the mat. You can't lie about how strong of a person you are or how much practice you put in when you're in the ring with that person, because they're gonna know. They're gonna find out real quick if you're somebody that put in the necessary time to be able to defend themselves and overpower the other person, or if you're all talk and you have no business being in that ring. There's no lies there, man. It's not something that you can lie your way through like we're able to in life outside of the ring. You know, there's so much of life that people are able to take advantage of certain opportunities, not by merit, not by being deserving or having earned their way into that situation, but because they lied or they seduced, manipulated, tricked somebody else. And the ring doesn't have that, you know. And I think that's why it's such a hallowed and sacred place. And while these like anime and video game characters definitely take the trope to the extreme, like by completely foregoing every other aspect of their humanity and self to pursue the fight, I think the essence of it is them trying to find out about themselves, the kind of person that they are, and how to better themselves through the means of combat, you know, and by forging themselves on the battlefield, by forging themselves in confrontation with others, they connect themselves with others, but they also learn about themselves. So I hope that makes sense, man. I hope that gives you guys, a little bit more insight into my thought process regarding that quote, and maybe made it feel a little bit less esoteric, you know, or just was an interesting conversation, man. So I appreciate you guys listening to me as always. Let me know what you guys thought about the topic, if you see it a different way, because I always like having the back and forth. And I'll talk to you guys again in the next video, man. Be good.